What's good, internet? Jake here, dumb as ever, and Spider-Man is one of the most prolific superheroes of all time. I would say he and Batman are on par in terms of popularity, and their stories are so rich and enjoyable that these characters can carry their own movie universes no problem. They're also similar because of cartoons. Spider-Man has a rich cartoon history starting in 1967, with that classic cartoon that introduced the Spider-Man pointing meme, among many others.
See? I told you! Now capture him! Which one?
As well as the iconic theme song that we still associate with Spider-Man today. This was followed by Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends in the 80s, which featured the webhead hanging out with Iceman and Firestar. And in the 90s we would be introduced to Spider-Man the Animated Series, which is arguably the definitive Spider-Man cartoon. It adapted classic Spider-Man stories for modern kids and introduced me to pretty much every character and trope of Spider-Man. This was also the first cartoon to get a big toy line, with plenty of Spider-Man toys, villains, and playsets. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing 3 series. The aforementioned Spider-Man the Animated Series, the weird MTV show called Spider-Man the New Animated Series, and finally, the Spectacular Spider-Man, my personal favorite show. We will also be discussing the toy lines for each of these shows. In my mind, the Spider-Man toys I had growing up were just as important as the cartoons. Also, I know there are many shows that came after the ones I'm going to talk about today, but honestly, the toy selection for those shows is really bad, and it's clear Hasbro just kind of phones it in now. I also didn't really watch them, and I find the show called Ultimate Spider-Man to be personally offensive, because it used the name of my favorite Spider-Man comic, but the show itself is wildly different and just not my type of show. Also, Drake Bell plays Spider-Man, what the hell? I will say I really enjoyed the recent Disney Plus show called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is kind of an alternate take on the MCU Spider-Man's origin, but again, Hasbro didn't make a single toy for that show, which is disappointing because I would love a Scorpion figure, but it feels like Hasbro gave up on trying to make engaging toys for kids, so I think it'll be fun to go back and take a look at toy lines where the company making them was actually trying. If you enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps me fight my own personal Green Goblin, Algae Rhythm. Like I said earlier, Spider-Man the Animated Series has reached all-time GOAT status, and it taught kids like me about the Spider-Man universe. One thing that stands out to me about the show is the variety of villains. We got your classics like Green Goblin and Venom, but we also had weird ones like Alistair Smythe, the creator of Spider Slayers, which are robots designed to slay Spider-Man, as well as Morbius, the living vampire. It still kills me to this day that Morbius of all villains got a live-action movie, and it wasn't even the first time he was in live action, because a deleted scene from Blade revealed him at the very end of the movie as a teaser for the next one. And I can't forget my goat Big Wheel, who is a villain that drives around in a big wheel, which is hilarious and honestly kind of cool. He's a weird Spider-Man villain, but I like him. The show was so amazing for so many other reasons, like the incredible voice cast. Christopher Daniel Barnes, the voice of Spider-Man, is iconic. His voice is so memorable to me, and I always have to laugh at that clip of Spider-Man chasing down Shocker.
Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
Christopher Daniel Barnes put his whole chest into that scene. It's so funny. And before we get into the toys, we have to do the obligatory Spider-Man the Animated Series did Spider-Verse first thing, with the multi-part Spider-Wars storyline, which introduces a bunch of multiversal Spider-Men, who have to work together to stop an evil Spider-Man that bonded with Carnage. I actually watched these episodes a lot as a kid, so when the Spider-Verse comic started coming out, I actually wasn't super surprised by the concept, though I am surprised by how popular it is now. And it's pretty cool to go back and see the prototype of the idea. Okay, let's talk toys, because lord, there are toys to talk about. The toy line for Spider-Man the Animated Series was created by Toy Biz, and I have to say it's a pretty iconic toy line, covering a huge range of characters from the show. There are so many toys that I couldn't possibly cover them all, especially because at a certain point, the toy line just goes in its own direction and starts adapting stuff straight from the comic books, which is cool, but at a certain point those toys don't feel like figures based on the animated series anymore. So I'm going to talk about the toys that are based on characters from the actual show. First, we're going to talk about Series 1 of the toy line, starting with Spidey himself, who got 2 toys in Series 1. The first is Web Shooter Spider-Man, who has had a launching web missile with a string tied to it, so he could shoot his web and swing from it, which is fun. And he has some regular articulation in his other limbs. This was back when articulation wasn't a huge focus for toys, so it's always nice to see older toys with decent articulation, even if it is just basic elbow and knee bends. There was also Web Racer Spider-Man, who was a lot less posable, with his arms in a permanent T-pose. He had a string through him so you can make Spider-Man slide from one end of the string to the other, which is kinda neat, but leaves him looking awkward most of the time. Can I also shout out the packaging for this toy line really quick? The purple with yellow accents is striking, and fits the cartoon's aesthetic perfectly. Series 1 featured 5 villains for your Spider-Man to fight. The aforementioned Alistair Smythe shows up. In the series, he's wheelchair-bound, but he's eventually transformed into the ultimate Spider Slayer, a genetic monster that looks weird as hell. Truly an off-putting design, but a neat toy nonetheless, though he has a very simple punching power gimmick. We also had Doc Ock. I have to say this is one of my least favorite Doc Ock looks. He's just super buff, and I like my octopus a little bit more rotund. Also, his outfit is a bit ugly. We already have one guy in a gaudy green and yellow costume, okay? The Doctor has a little plunger you can pull on, and his tentacles kind of bend forward, so not the most compelling action feature. We also, of course, have Venom in the lineup. Venom was heavily featured in the advertising for the show, and he even shows up in the intro. Did anyone else ever wonder why they had that Venom title card, with the normal Spider-Man title card appearing like 2 seconds later? Even as a kid, I thought that was weird. But with this cartoon, Venom's popularity exploded, and a whole new generation of kids learned about Spider-Man's dark reflection. If you squeeze his legs, his jaw opens a little bit, so you can make him talk. I did notice the painted fangs on his spider logo look a bit weird. They look like little mushrooms or something, and the drawn images of the toy even reflect this weird paint job. Along with Venom, we have his spawn, Carnage, who might be the best figure of Series 1, with awesome sculpting and an incredible paint job. I love that he comes with clip-on weapons. Finally, for Series 1, we have Hobgoblin. Normally in the Spider-Man universe, Green Goblin is introduced first, but in the animated series they introduced Hobgoblin first, because Toy Biz had already sculpted this Hobgoblin toy, which is kinda silly, and makes that aspect of the animated series really unique. The toy is okay. I do like that he comes with his glider, and the glider can shoot a little missile. Green Goblin would get his own figure later in the toy line. This figure looks great, especially his freaky face and bulging eyes. He comes with a pumpkin bomb to hold, but sadly it doesn't really stay plugged in. Lizard also got a figure. I love how this guy looks. Lizard has always been one of my favorite villains, and this toy looks so goofy and fun. I love his little lab coat, though it's actually made out of a thin plastic, so I bet a lot of used copies have ripped lab coats. We also had the Vulture, who had the power to steal youth in the show, changing him from the typical old man Vulture to this younger one. The toy of him is really fun. His wings can fold down, and when you squeeze his legs, the wings pop up, along with his arms. I also like that he comes with a blaster that you can actually holster. Kingpin is an absolute unit of a toy. He doesn't move much, but the sculpting is amazing. Also, his head looks so funny, just like a little egg on top of a mountain. Scorpion is another villain I love. For any other superhero, he probably would have been the arch enemy, but because Spidey's rogues gallery is so extensive, he kinda ends up in the background a lot. I think this toy is awesome looking though, and his tail is very long with a striking action. Mysterio looks cool. His action feature is squirting water, and as a result he has a huge gaping hole in his back. I'm sure he's fine. Michael freaking Morbius got a toy, featuring his iconic ugly mug. What's cool is if you squeeze his legs he can turn into human Morbius, though he still has living vampire arms no matter what, so that looks a bit weird. Being a Spider-Man toy line, there are of course many Spider-Man variants. Black costume Spider-Man has a big old chest, because part of his chest opens to reveal this thin plastic, and Spider-Man will climb up the plastic kind of like a slow tape measure. Battle Ravage Spider-Man is awesome. I love battle damage figures as a genre, and this is probably one of the earliest versions. I really like that he comes with a camera for his belt, and the broken Doc Ock arm is a nice touch. There was also Spider Sense Spider-Man. In the show, whenever Peter's Spider Sense would go off, everything would change color for a second, and this toy represents that, which is pretty cool, though it makes for a weird Spider-Man. There was also Spider Armor Spider-Man, which was this metal costume that I saw a lot growing up. I remember it from the PS1 video game the most. I feel like it's fallen out of favor because Spidey has so many outfits now, but I'm still nostalgic for this silver Spider-Man. Getting really weird now, we have Octo Spidey, one of the multiversal Spider-Men from Spider-Wars. It's funny how much better this guy is than the real Dr. Octopus. octopus. His tentacles have bendy wires, so they're superposable and really long. Getting even weirder, we have 6-armed Spider-Man, which is from the Neogenic Nightmare story arc, where Peter starts mutating into a spider monster. This figure is cool, though the arm articulation looks a little silly, and because the arms are all molded together, the bottom arms look like they're growing off of the middle arms, which is more gross looking than the actual show. We also had the evolution of this form, Man Spider, where Spider-Man went fully feral as a mutated spider. This is the only toy on the list I actually had as a kid, and I loved it. My version lost its mandibles at some point, but man, I would play with him all the time. And I really appreciate the sculpting on this figure. He also comes with some Jurassic Park style capture gear, which is a fun touch. Finally, we have Superposable Spider-Man, which may have been the first ever superposable Spider-Man toy. And it's an incredible toy. Compared to every other figure in the line, he really is superposable. He even has an ab swivel, which is kind of bizarre to see on such an old toy. This Spidey obviously isn't as posable as later ones, but compared to the other Spider-Man toys in the series, he's probably the best one you could get in the line. Like any good toy line, we had a variety of vehicles and playsets. The Hobgoblin Wing Bomber is a huge goblin glider. It looks really cool and has a bunch of missile launching features. I love that you can just slot Hobgoblin's glider into the bomber. That's a really cool feature. Smythe also got a vehicle, a battle-ready version of his futuristic wheelchair. It's weird how in these 90s cartoons, no one seems to have a normal wheelchair. This set is kind of cool. Not as fun as Hobgoblin's glider to me, but it does make your Smythe figure a bit less lame. Finally, we have Spider Slayer. Spider Slayers are giant robots designed by Smythe to destroy Spider-Man, and they were one of the main threats early on in the show. I think this Spider Slayer is awesome. It's 3 separate robots. The blue and black ones look like spiders, while the green one is more like a scorpion. They're fun little robots on their own, but can combine into the Spider Slayer, which looks awesome and reminds me of Yu-Gi-Oh! XYZ creatures. In terms of playsets, we of course have the Daily Bugle, which is a great looking playset from the front. I love the use of cardboard to fill out the skyline. And it's got many features like a dumpster to hold slime, or a little lab for Doc Ock with a giant tentacle. The interior of the Daily Bugle leaves a lot to be desired, but there is at least a very thin elevator, which is fun. Overall, it's a great display piece and an okay playset. The last playset, and the last Spider-Man the Animated Series toy I'm going to be talking about, is Kingpin's Crime Central, which is a layer for supervillains that folds up into the top of the Chrysler building, which is fun. This playset has a lot of play features as well, like a giant blaster or Kingpin's desk with this weird mask he can put on. Maybe Kingpin was just really into VR chat back in the day.
Because I have phantom pain!
I think this playset is fine, but I definitely prefer the Daily Bugle. Like I said earlier, the toy line eventually just started doing its own thing, so if you want me to dive into the weirder parts of this toy line in another video, let me know. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and want to support me past liking and subscribing, I have a YouTube membership and Patreon, and for $1 a month, both give you the same thing. Access to my super chill private Discord community, and a member-exclusive series of videos called Toy Dives, where I look into random toy lines, like the line for Real Steel, that really cool movie with Hugh Jackman about robots that box each other. Before we get into our next subject, I did want to mention Spider-Man Unlimited, which was a show I really liked as a kid, especially the art style. Unfortunately, Unlimited never got a toy line, which is fairly surprising given how cartoons at the time were basically vehicles to sell toys. I am happy that they made a Marvel Legends toy of him recently, though without the stylistic shadows over his body, he looks a bit weird. It's funny because even his box art has the shadows. They're basically baked into his design. But again, I'm glad there is a figure, and I plan to pick it up in the future. Moving on, in 2002, MTV of all channels was cooking up a new Spider-Man show. Originally, it was going to be based on Ultimate Spider-Man, which actually makes so much sense. I've never thought about it, but the Spider-Man model from the show really is just his ultimate look. They even had the writer of Ultimate Spider-Man, Brian Michael Bendis, on the team for the show helping develop it. But with the success of the live-action Spider-Man movie, the focus shifted to being a continuation of that movie, with Peter, Harry, and MJ being friends who hang out in college. Ideas like Harry thinking his dad was killed by Spider-Man are brought over from the movie as well. The show had one season with 13 episodes, and was immediately contradicted by Spider-Man 2, so it never really was a true continuation of the movie. You could kind of consider it a weird alternate universe, kind of like what Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is to the MCU. I never watched this show as a kid because I didn't watch MTV, so I had no idea it existed until I was older and on the internet. When I found out about it, I thought the show was the coolest thing ever. A 3D Spider-Man based on the movies I love so much? It sounds great, but it's really mid and sometimes outright bad. For example, the first episode introduces a villain named Turbojet, who has a suit that can push and pull gravity in front or behind him, which is a cool idea. Turbojet isn't a character from the comic books, so he's completely new and made up for the show. The episode proposes a moral quandary. A block of apartments in the city is set to be torn down, and Turbojet is stealing rare artifacts, selling them, and then donating the money to the people trying to save their homes, which is obviously a heroic Robin Hood-like thing to do. But Peter is conflicted because of the stealing aspect, and he tries to stop Turbojet several times. Now, obviously I'm not advocating for stealing, but it's really hard to see Turbojet as the villain, when he's so clearly doing a positive thing in this scenario. Peter and MJ even have multiple debates on the topic. Now, how did they settle this debate in the show? Well, the writers just make Turbojet bad. He's revealed to be an egomaniac, and he's only doing it because he wants to save his building, I guess? It doesn't really make sense. He implies that he doesn't care about anyone in the building, and he's just doing what needs to be done. But at the same time, he's stealing stuff and selling it on the black market for thousands of dollars, and then donating the money to the protesters, who he claims not to care about, when he could have easily just kept the money and moved somewhere way better. It just doesn't make any logical sense. And when Turbojet is finally cornered by Spider-Man and the police, he throws a telescope at a random person, just to really cement to the viewer that you're supposed to hate this guy actually. I think it's fairly obvious the writers wrote themselves into a corner with this episode. It's kind of the worst trope where they make a sympathetic villain, and then when they need you to hate the villain, the writers just make them completely evil. It's really lazy and left a bad taste in my mouth. And Spider-Man in the episode comes off like a jealous jerk. Not a very good first impression of this Spidey, or the show in general. I will say I like the episode focused on the Lizard. It's a very typical Lizard story, though Kurt Connors is more prickly than he usually is.
Parker, what the hell are you doing?
Nothing.
I hope you're not thinking you'd rather be out there having mindless enjoyment instead of helping me rewrite the textbook on cell regeneration.
I was just about to check the regeneration rate.
You say it like you're checking your email. Have I not made clear the importance of this experiment?
Also, Rob Zombie plays him, which is so random. I really love the Lizard's design. Super bestial, like a giant iguana, similar to the Ultimate Spider-Man version. The episode itself is fine, but man, the show can really fire up some great action scenes when needed. And that's probably the strongest point of the show. And it's clear that's where most of the effort went, because the Peter Parker scenes are pretty stiff and a bit boring. I also have to shout out Michael Clark Duncan's Kingpin somehow making it into this universe. He played Kingpin in the 2003 Daredevil movie, and for some reason he also voices Kingpin in this show. So I guess you could make a weird fan theory where Daredevil and this show are set in the same universe, but I honestly don't see the point in that. Anyway, this show did surprisingly have two toys, both from Toy Biz. I actually had no idea these existed until I started doing research, so this was actually really exciting to learn about. Let's start with Spider-Man, who looks incredible. Toy Biz did a great job translating the Spider-Man from the show, especially with his raised silver webs that shine in the light just like they do in the show. His articulation is really weird though, because he has double jointed knees, which is great posability, but he literally has no elbow bend, which is crazy to me considering the toys from 1994 had elbows. But regardless, he looks great, though he can only really hold a couple good poses, but it really is a striking look for Spider-Man. There was also a toy for the Lizard, which is really exciting to me because I love his design. The sculpt on this guy is absolutely amazing. The level of detail they were able to apply is absolutely jaw-dropping. I love his orange eyes, and he's definitely a lighter shade of green than the show, but I can totally forgive that because he looks so raw. His articulation is also fairly limited, but he can still pull off some great poses. And as the kids say, he has aura, so even just standing there, he looks cool. I would love to add a Lizard to my collection, but sadly these toys run for hundreds of dollars now. Probably because nobody bought them, so Toy Biz didn't make that many of the toys. toys. There are some prototypes on eBay that are literally being sold for thousands. Video talking about this era of cartoons, so let me know if you would be interested in that. But back to Spectacular Spider-Man, which starts with Spider-Man after a summer of crime fighting for the first time. So we skip the passing of Uncle Ben and all that other origin stuff. But for the most part, he encounters all of his supervillains for the first time after school starts. I absolutely love the art style. It has so much character, and all of the designs for the villains are super cool. Vulture especially got a cooler look than usual, and I really like Electro's design. And y'all already know I'm a Lizard fanboy, with this version being an excellent combo of his more beast-like appearance while still wearing his iconic outfit. The show did a great job at evolving villains over time. For example, early on in the show, Spidey fights the Enforcers several times, who are a group of higher level thugs that work for Tombstone. Eventually, one of the Enforcers, Montana, is given new equipment and becomes the Shocker, which I thought was so cool as a kid. And he was actually a pretty powerful villain in the show. The show really doesn't leave a lot of logic on the floor and feels more clever than most kids' cartoons. It also did an amazing job of making Peter's life stressful as hell. Aunt May is way more of a helicopter parent, and she's really on Peter's ass with curfews and groundings. Peter also has to face social issues like selling pictures of the Lizard to the Daily Bugle because he needs money to help Aunt May with bills. But by doing that, the Connors family feels betrayed and cut him off. These are classic Spider-Man scenarios, where being a superhero clearly makes Peter's life worse, but he does it regardless because, you know, great power and all that jazz. Okay, let's discuss the Spectacular Spider-Man toy line, which was created by Hasbro this time, since they gained the Marvel license in 2007. This is a toy line I sadly never had a chance to collect, so I live vicariously by watching toy reviews like the ones by the Review Spot back in the day. I will say early on, even as a kid, I wasn't super impressed with this line. I had reached an age where I started forming opinions, and at the time I had decided that gimmicks are bad and articulation good, which shouldn't be that surprising because I was watching videos made by adults with these exact opinions. The early Spectacular line was pretty mid though, mostly because the toys were clearly based on concept art. Spider-Man, for example, had way too many webs on his costume compared to the show, but we'll talk about the Spider-Man figures more in a bit. Some of the villains, like Doc Ock, suffered way more. This Doc Ock figure sucks. He barely moves at all, he's stuck in this dumb pose, his tentacles look wrong, and his belt is literally painted onto him. He has a very lame gimmick where squeezing his leg causes his top tentacles to move. Not even all of them, just the top ones. Thankfully, Doc Ock got a second, much better figure. This one is still lacking a lot of movement due to his chunky design, but he looks so much better, and he looks just like the character from the show. Venom was also a bit different. He's pretty similar for the most part, but was given painted white claws and toes. He's also really squat, so he looks shorter than Spidey. The show did an amazing job with Venom's story, and he was a super compelling villain. Venom also got a second figure with more accurate hands and feet, though he still wasn't very posable. This isn't the case with all the figures though. For example, Lizard is very posable, and it looks super accurate to his look in the show. He has some sort of tail spinning gimmick, but it doesn't detract from the actual toy, which is great. Rhino is a massive figure, and he looks amazing. I'm not usually a big Rhino fan, but I've always loved this design, and I feel like they should have retooled it into Venom. Much like Doc Ock, Sandman is pretty much a statue, with a very lame action feature, but he is very accurate to the show at least, and I like that he has a swappable weapon hand. The Vulture is another great figure that takes the design and just adapts it into a really nice posable action figure. I love this take on the Vulture, and the wings are cool because you can detach him so his elbows can bend. Electro is similar, just a great adaptation. I also really like this version of Electro, who is more of a victim than anything. He wears a rubber suit to contain his electrified body. I absolutely love that he comes with an alternate masked head. This was pretty uncommon at the time, and it just completes the figure. He does have a missile launching arm thing, but it looks fine just by itself. Finally, the Green Goblin got a toy, and man is he amazing. Hasbro did something brilliant and gave him nearly as much articulation as Spider-Man, making him a truly worthy foe. I'm glad he also got his glider. This version of Green Goblin is my all-time favorite, and I love that he can go bar for bar against Peter with quips. I also love the giant pumpkin on his belt. I just think it looks cool. Like any Spider-Man toy line, there are hella variants of Spider-Man, most of them with goofy armor or weapons he didn't use in the show. Thankfully, you can remove a lot of the armor, and most of the figures are fantastically posable. They fixed the design over time and made some super accurate, spectacular Spider-Man toys. Eventually, they made even more posable figures figures that had butterfly joints and wrist movement. This is the one figure in the line I think holds up the most. They also did several symbiote Spider-Man toys. In the show, when he first gets the symbiote, his costume is the same but just black, like Spider-Man 3. But over time, as it feeds on Peter, it becomes more and more like the classic symbiote suit. And since Hasbro made multiple versions, you can actually recreate that arc with your toys, which is amazing. This show was a love letter to Spider-Man, taking everything that was done before, and now Hasbro has been remaking a bunch of toys based on the animated series from the 90s. And I'm anxiously awaiting the Spectacular fandom's time to shine, because I would absolutely love a Marvel Legends line of Spectacular Spider-Man remakes, so long as they stay true to the unique art style of the show. I really hope Hasbro makes some decent toys for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man as well. The toys from my childhood weren't perfect, but they were way better than the slop kids get now. And I think Hasbro is only hurting itself in the long run by not giving kids toys they can truly marvel at. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and if you'd like to support me further, I have a YouTube membership and Patreon. For $1 a month, both platforms give you the same thing: access to my private Discord server where we do monthly movie nights and weekly Toku nights, and weekly exclusive videos called Toy Dives where I talk about a random toy line. As a reminder, I now have merch. Check out the link in my description to get your very own Dumb Jake shirt, hoodie, or sticker. Alright y'all, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.